2, 1. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. My name is StoneMountain64. This is the Fireside Gaming Podcast. It's currently April 12th, 2019. Today, we are joined with another guest, Steven Ellis, a.k.a. Snoopeh. How you doing, dude?
What's up? I always find that funny. You know when you get introduced as your alias?
Yeah.
And then that you go back and forth. I don't know if you ever found that, but
dude,
like,
it's one of the weirdest things. And literally, I notice it from everybody too. Whenever I go to a gaming convention, it's always like, hey, I'm David. Also, I'm also StoneMountain64. I don't know. You might know. Here's both my names.
I caved. I was like, okay, just call me Snoopy.
That's what I do too, dude. That's what I do too.
Snoopy, and I'm like, is that how you say it? And I go, Snoopy. Like whatever that sounds like to you, just go with it.
Yeah, that's what I just say. Forget it, dude. It's hard enough to learn two names or one name, let alone two names. So that's why I was like, oh, I was onto that. But last week we had Aculite on. That was insane. It was a great podcast. I'm kind of working my way into bringing some more guests on, so that's why I'm super excited to be bringing you on. It seemed to be super well received, not just me chatting by myself in my room like I do, but I'll still probably do that from time to time. But a ton of fun to bring you on. Some people know some of your background. You have quite a history streaming, competing, everything. I just wanted to let you kind of intro. Where is it you started?
Yeah.
Like, what is it? What's it about?
One of the things I was wondering is like, I wonder if there's any crossover. Just given, when I was at the peak of my career in the past, I was, playing League of Legends at the time, and I'm wondering if there's actually any crossover with your audience. It'd be interesting if there is, but I'm assuming that there isn't. In my backstory, I was just a passionate gamer that grew up in Scotland. So I've got a funny accent. It's the first thing I'll say. Introduce myself. My accent's like half Scottish, but more American now. But back in the day, when I was growing up in Scotland, I remember when I was like 6, I really just wanted a graphics card for Christmas. I was like very atypical kid. And I was such a passionate, obsessed gamer. And fast forward like a little bit, I ended up competing professionally as a League of Legends player, and playing in stages all over the world.
When did you what were you playing on your computer that you wanted to get a graphics card? Like, I was 4. I definitely did not have. I just got like a Nintendo when I was young, and then I played like Game Boy and stuff like that. But
back then, so my dad was like, your dad's like a kind of tech guy. Like my dad was really into it. He was like playing around with all stuff and was always like buying the new, like the Amstrad and the Omega and things like that. So I had that in my house at the time, and I saw him tinkering and playing. And it got to a point when I think it was like, I was hooked on this game, Age of Empires.
Yeah.
I don't know if you ever played it, but it's like a really good game, especially Age of Empires 2, like rest in peace. It was like a really good game. And I played a lot of that. But then my dad started playing Quake, like the old Quake, like Quake 1. And he got like Duke Nukem, and like, he wouldn't let me play it. And I was like so annoyed that he wouldn't let me play it. And then he started these things every Friday night where he would he would set up these like LAN servers through Hamachi. I can't even remember. It was like this weird like internet, because it was before like matchmaking or the internet really worked. Like he made his own mini server so that people could like come play on it. And he would, instead of going out on a Friday night, he would play with his mates, and they would play Medal of Honor, old classic war game, which I'm sure a lot of your audience is like familiar with. And I really wanted to play. I'd watch him like every Friday night, and then it'd be like time for me to go to bed, and then he would like still be playing. And eventually, like I convinced him to let me play a couple of times. And obviously, like when you first start out, I was bad. But quickly, like I got to play a little more, and I started to get good. And I was like, I really wanted to get my own PC so I could play. And I got my own PC that I could play on, and then it was like a cheap PC, right? Just starting out,
Sure.
I'm a kid.
Yeah.
And then it was Christmas, and I was like, I really want a new graphics card. Like because I just became obsessed with like having the latest tech.
Yeah.
And I got the graphics card, and then I started playing every Friday night against my dad and then my dad's mates. And it got to the point, actually, I think it was like a couple of months in, where his mates got really annoyed and they were like, "We're not playing with your son anymore. You're cheating." I'm like a 7-year-old kid at this point, and they're like, "We're not playing. He's cheating." And I was there, like, I wasn't cheating, but like they were just, it was like ruining their
Yeah.
Friday night fun that they were having. So then I kind of ventured off and started playing in my own and do different games.
Was it like when you started playing League, was it like at the very beginning when it came out and you started playing it and mastering it, got like ahead of everybody on it, or was it already out and you just got like, because I played League for a few years when I was in college. I never put any content up on it or anything, but it had already been around. Like I saw people in competitions, it was already getting pretty big, and some of my friends. So I started to play it, but I never got like crazy good at it. I just, I just played it a little casually here and there.
I don't know if like for you when you're playing games, but throughout all of my teenage years, when I started playing games a little more, I was like the hyper competitive guy. Like I would start playing a game with my friends and I could no longer play with my friends because I would start going into like higher like ladders and ranks and stuff. So like I was playing semi-pro when I was like 13, 12, semi-pro in Team Fortress Classic. I was semi-pro in CS, 1.3, I think it was at that point in time. I then played like EVE Online, which if you've ever heard anything about EVE Online, it's spaceships and spreadsheets.
Yeah.
And I played that for 7.5 years. And I was like hardcore at that game. Like that's how I made money as a kid, because you're not technically allowed to do this, but I would basically be like building up accounts and then like selling those accounts and buying and trading, selling them. And like I'd keep leveling up. And I had this like empire. I was running something like, as a 15-year-old, like 8 accounts in EVE Online. I even like dabbled, like, when Vanilla WoW went to Burning Crusade?
Yeah.
I hated Burning Crusade. So I stopped playing WoW and I spun up my own private server.
Really?
Play Vanilla WoW with like buddies. And then I actually grew into like a community, and I ended up making we would sell custom gear inside this WoW server and like make hundreds of thousands of dollars of people that just like had a nostalgic feeling for Vanilla WoW. So I was always obsessed with like the top of the thing. Like I never was like a casual, I'm going to sit on my sofa and like play some games. Like I always obsessed over, and it was almost like an escape for me. I like wasn't the most social kid growing up. I, was definitely more of this is my world and I'm going to like own it. So when League came along, it was actually some friends that recommended League. And this was back in 2010. So like maybe like 6 months after their first soft release they did. And a few buddies introduced me to it. And I started playing it and I hated it. It was the first MOBA that I'd ever played. And I really did not enjoy it. I tried just because my buddies were like obsessed. And I was like, I'm going to try it. And I just could not get it.
What did was it like the actual League, or was it that type of game that you didn't like though?
Type of game.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it was not necessarily the League. It was just the type of game. I just couldn't. It was a MOBA, right? It was just fundamentally different from any FPS or like the other like MMOs that I played. And I just didn't like it. I didn't play StarCraft in the past, so like I didn't have that kind of, or Dota.
Yeah.
Relationship.
When I remember when I was playing it was like one of the things that I liked about it was that I was kind of figuring out all these like it was such a huge difference from like a shooter that it was like overwhelming, the amount of information and everything. Even though it's not like the crazy most complex game, there's so many like the small detailed complexities within it.
Yeah, that's really is. Like
I lost it, dude.
So like I left it and I was playing like Battlefield Heroes or something. Remember Battlefield Heroes? Did you ever play that?
No.
So it was like the cartoon version of Battlefield.
Interesting.
It was such a good game. I played that for like a solid half year. Anyway, I went back to playing that for a bit, and then my buddies just like coaxed me into it, and like we're saying like, come on, we'll start doing team games. We'll play as a team together. And you know how it is, like you cave till like, your buddies are like trying to get you.
For sure.
So I cave and I go back and I start playing, and I had so much fun. Like the problem before is I was playing myself and trying to figure it out and like get better. This time I went back and we only played team games every time we played, and I had so much more fun. And that fun, I end up just getting good. Like naturally, I pick up games, I get quite good, and I just got better and better. And fast forward 6 months, I couldn't play with my buddies again because I was just, being better than them, and it wasn't fun for them. It wasn't fun for me. And then I ended up climbing the European ladder and becoming one of the best players in Europe.
And do you
In the
think
European
that
ladder.
like that? Do you think that drive for you to, or maybe the reason that you came better at it, was it like you were just super competitive to where you were putting in more time that your friends were like, just playing it casually? You're really like trying to figure that out, or is it just like, what do you think that was that stood you? Or maybe it was just your competitiveness. Like, what
Yeah.
was it that drove you to like climb? Because that's, at least for me, like, I see the ladders and I'm just like, whatever. I've never really climbed any leaderboards, like even in PUBG or any other games that I play. I've gotten high ranked in like Halo back in the day, but I didn't. What do you think that is?
I can't really explain it. Like it's definitely, I'm a hyper competitive person. I definitely am. But the act of like climbing and what makes you want to keep pushing and grinding, I think that maybe like there could be a status element to it. Like if I dig like really deep and I think like why does that or why did I care at that
Yeah.
point? Like it could be something to do with status, right? I mean, I like, and this is me going really deep. So sorry for those listening, but it's just a thought exercise. Like if I go back to when I was a kid, I grew up in a very small town. I never traveled much. I never like we didn't do a whole lot from the small town I'm from, and I was like getting recognized for doing something great in this game. And I think like that status and that recognition probably was some of the fuel, not all of the fuel, but some of the fuel that made me keep chasing that feeling and wanting to compete. And I just started developing this competitive muscle over time. And I think that kind of manifested. Like League was just a game that I latched onto, and I became really good at it. And first, I got on the ladders in Europe, and then I got the chance to basically substitute for one of the kind of teams at that time. The ecosystem's a lot more or a lot less mature than it is now, but play for one of the teams, SK Gaming, and I got the chance to go to Germany and play on stage. And you tell a guy that like was liking like the competitive aspect, like you put him on a stage at Gamescom in front of like 5,000 people, like you can't imagine like the adrenaline, the drug that was like inside of me. I was hooked. I was like, I am not letting us go. I know I can do this. I am one of the best in Europe. I'm going to make this a thing. Fast forward like a couple of weeks, that team that I was substituting for said, you know what, you're better than our main guy we have. I want you on the team. And that then began, I then began my career essentially. And there was a pivotal point that happened in my early career in League of Legends. Was I was going to China for the first time, and my dad had been to China on like a work trip or two before. They had a thing out there. He was like, "Oh, I really want to take the family there." At one point, and he didn't get to go this trip because he was actually really sick at the point in time. He was fighting cancer, and for any of those that have family or friends that have fought it, it's really not a pretty thing to go through. And he was fighting that, so he couldn't go on the trip with me. But I came back from that, and I was like, I know why you found it so amazing and wanted to show it. And like, it just totally opened my eyes to the world and gave me this sense of like fire inside of me. He passed 2 days later when I got back from that China trip. I was then meant to compete. A week and a half later, I was meant to be in New York at Comic-Con competing for one of the IEM Intellectual Master events. And I was in this situation where I was like, do I go after this or do I not? I can't leave my mom and my sisters. Like, I'm upset. Like, I didn't even process it really.
Yeah.
My mom like told me, you got to go. And I went, and I didn't tell any of my team. I didn't tell any of my management, anything like that. I just went, and we got second in the world at this tournament, and we like killed it. Like, we did so well. We almost came first. And that was the catalyst. Like that, I was like, I'm not letting this go. I'm going to make this my career. I dropped out of university. So I missed that part out. Like I dropped out of university, which my mom was like, what the fuck? Like my son's gone off the rails. Like what? Like 4 months later, I tell her I'm moving to South Korea and Seoul. And she's like, what just happened? Like, my boy is like now moving to the other side of the world. He's dropped out of university. What is going on? And I was just like, I'm gonna make this. I'm gonna be one of the best League of Legends players in the world, and that started a 4.5 year journey where I competed in over 30 countries around the world. I lived in Korea, China, Germany, all of the US in different team houses and teams. But yeah, it was that early catalyst was super important in my career.
When you were at those events, did you like? So you were playing for your team. Like,
Yep.
what was the I don't know, like connections that you made, or like did you switch teams at all during that process? Like, was
The
it
hardest thing about like in esports, right? You have team games, you have single player games. Single player games are the skill ceiling typically in a single player game is usually higher. Like the people at the very top are like leagues above the person that's like, 10 steps down or whatever. But it's such you're in your own mind the entire time. And that can be a blessing and a curse. In other games, team games, so like Counter-Strike or League of Legends or Overwatch, in those games, you have in League of Legends 4 other people that you depend on to create the outcome, which is a win, which is the one you want.
right?
And that is a complexity that I think if you look at the NBA or you look at any other team sport, it's such a nuance that impacts severely the career of a professional player. Like I need to get on with these 4 other people that are from different parts of the world, and not only get on, I need to think that they're my brothers. Like they need to be
Right.
family to me. And just think about like I live every single day with this other teammate, these other 4 teammates. Like I need to practice 8 to 12 hours a day with them, and then we got to compete on a stage, and this has to happen over a season, like a 6 months or a year. Breathing that every single day, like that environment is one of the most challenging parts of being a professional player. The actual competing on the stage, that part like comes naturally to a competitor.
Sure.
All the behind the scenes stuff, that's the hard part, and that's the part that most players struggle with. I was lucky in that I was one of the older players in the group of our team, at least. So it was easier for me to have the experience and I took on a captain role because I just had more life experience, to be frank. I just been around longer.
Yeah.
And that made it easier for me to work with my team, but it's definitely challenging. You've got a lot of egos. You've got a lot of just drama that happens behind the scenes. You've got like someone left the dishes in the sink. Like that's just, it's the smallest thing, but like if that happens every single day, you're just like, it's just a small annoyance, right?
Oh yeah.
You've got people that like don't wake up to like 12 in the afternoon right before you start scrims.
So
That's annoying. Like
after you done some competing, you moved to, you said South Korea,
yeah, so I moved
and was
to,
that like a team house that you were in then for it?
so we actually, our team was invited to what's called OGN Summer, and this was in 2012. And it's essentially like a 4-month long knockout tournament. And we went there 2 months before. We got invited, and we went 2 months before to start boot camping. Our team was doing quite well on the European circuit, so that's why we got the invite. And we got there 2 months before and started practicing. And we got there, and we were getting absolutely like, I can swear on this, right? There's no like,
Yeah. No, it's fine.
we were getting shit on, right? Like the Koreans were just so much better than us. Like it wasn't even close. Like it actually, like we got to the point where like we're gonna lose this, so let's just see what we can learn out of it. Like that's like every game mentality was like, what can we learn out of this loss before we'd even started? And the tournament starts, and we were just expected like all the Western teams, pretty much all the North American, European teams were like, they're just gonna get knocked out, like whatever, like it'll be fun for them for a month, like free trip to Korea. And we played in this, and we were actually like the sister team to the main team, CLG. So like CLG North America was like the main team, and we were the sister team. We beat our sister team, who was the main team. We then went on and just this like succession of like, we're at a studio every day playing on Korean national television. And we're playing every day or every week, and we ended up making it all the way to the semifinals. And everyone was like, "What the hell's going on? This is Western team doing like." And we had so much, like all the entire West was like behind us in the League of Legends scene. And then we got to the finals. We're playing against Azubia Frost, and you can like, I can't describe this, David. Like the stadium that I played at, right? It was the Korean War Memorial. There was giant soldiers, like statues of soldiers in this venue. And you know, like how you get those pillars? Like I can't remember, it's like in like Rome or something. You've got those giant pillars that go
Oh
down
yeah.
this.
Hmm.
We were on a stage and we had those giant pillars down the side. The audience of 10,000 people right in front of us. We're outdoors, massive Korean like soldier like memorial, and we are 2-0 up in a best of 5 final. 2-0 in a best of 5 final. All of North America is like going to sleep because it's like whatever time. And then one of our players gets too cocky. And he makes this small little play in a 45-minute game, this small little play that turns the tides a little bit. And we were winning 2-0 up, like momentum's our way. Tides turned, and suddenly the Korean team latches onto it. Azubia Frost. They latch onto it and they are hungry. Like they start getting these small wins, small wins, small wins. They turned the tides and ended up winning 3-2.
Wow.
We were going to be the first Western team to beat Korea on home soil. We had everything in our favor. The story arc, like, you couldn't have even wrote this if you tried. We ended up going 2-3 and losing.
That is incredible. I can't even imagine what the audience.
Oh, it was insane. Like that moment, like for anyone who's a League of Legends fan during that period, it was utterly insane.
So I'm curious then, you obviously very good at gaming, playing, competing. What about streaming though? Because you were streaming at this time as well, right? Like what was your that was, I mean, around that time, that was when Twitch was just come off being Justin. Like, when did you start doing that? What was that process like?
I started streaming on Own3D, which was before Twitch, and it was a European service, and they were the top dog. Like for gaming, Own3D was the top streaming service for the longest time. But they ended up paying for all their like hosting through cloud services, and their costs were astronomical, and they ended up not being able to pay creators and all sorts of crazy stuff. And Twitch was like, okay, that's when they realized we're going to be Twitch, not Justin. And they started bringing people over. And when I moved over to Twitch, I was streaming on there since 2011 or 10. And it was like, for you in the early esports days, you made no money, or not a lot of money at least. And streaming was like the way we made money. Like, believe it or not, ad revenue was like a really meaningful contributor at that point in time because donations and subs didn't even exist. So we would stream in all of our off time. And, you know, we'd be streaming in front. Like I got to the point where I was getting 25,000 concurrents at the peak. And I loved it. Like I don't know if I was funny or not. I think back then I had a Scottish accent, which was good. Like I don't have the American accent I have now.
Sure.
And I also was very good at the game. So I had those two things like really going for me. Now not so much, but definitely at the time, like that was like the main way we made our money. And it's actually, you'll notice this happening in the industry right now, is for some pro players, they'll decide to go to become streamers because the money in streaming is bigger than that in esports. So it was definitely like in streaming as well, interestingly, was just it's why actually esports took off so much in the 2011 timeframe. It had like Riot Games, the developer, wanted to make esports a thing and put a lot of resources behind it. And Twitch had like came out. So like the technology plus the developer investment at the same time created like a hockey stick for esports.
And Riot's the creator of League of Legends. So they were trying to bolster the whole thing up through Twitch then.
Yeah. Like the whole, like if you want to see League competitively, it was on Twitch. And to be honest, like Twitch has a lot to thank Riot for in those early days because they skyrocketed the numbers on that platform. And it was a perfect little mixing pot of things happening that helped League esports, but also helped Twitch.
Did you ever, like, was anybody creating anything on YouTube at the time for that? Because that's where I was creating a lot of content for that. And I did see League of Legends blowing up on Twitch. And I kind of, in my mindset, I was like, that's mostly just for League of Legends and whatnot. I'm just gonna keep doing stuff on YouTube. Was it?
There definitely was some stuff happening on YouTube. Obviously, YouTube is a massive platform, but
Yeah, sure.
it was and there was community content. But because of esports and the way esports worked, like you were tuning into this live event, and that was all on Twitch. So it really did pick up off the live event world, and the VOD tail wasn't a thing. I'm now positive that VOD is much bigger than live for League of Legends, but back then it was really indexing heavily on these big events they were spending a lot of money putting on, and that created a creator ecosystem from that. And it was actually a lot of the former pro players were switching to streaming,
Yeah.
and that was like the early live creators, like was those pro players.
And what kind of tools did you have when you were streaming? Was it like,
Oh, it was so janky.
if you didn't have subscriptions or tips, you still had ad revenue, but like, was there a good chat? Like,
Oh no, David, like it was a crapshoot. Like we would also be streaming on one monitor because like you got to think like my we were traveling around the world, right? And we were just like set up in these little like quick setup things to practice. So we just had one monitor. So what I would do is that I had the monitor where I'm playing my PC, and I'd have my laptop on the second screen where I could like load up the stream itself. Chat, you couldn't separate chat out. I would just have the twitch.tv/Snoopeh like loaded up.
right.
I'd be looking at the chat there. The video's running. I'd have to like remember and like mute the video on the laptop, and then you've got like the team around me is like shouting, so it's coming through all the time on my mic. Uh, OBS was the go-to at that point in time. /XSplit, there was like both, but like Streamlabs didn't exist.
Right.
There
No.
was no such thing as donations or subscriptions. Eventually, donations came, but before Streamlabs, it was like a PayPal link, and you just had to get people to go to their PayPal. It
So
was far from what it is today.
do you think it was like, you were there, was it you scrimming, like working with your team whenever you were streaming? It was just like the scrims, the practices, or was it competition as well that you were streaming too?
We would mix it up. So scrims would be a big part. We never streamed competitions, like the tournament organizer would do that, but we would stream our practice sometimes, but we got very protective over that because people would like watch it to try and see what we're doing.
Yeah, sure.
Then we got to the point where we would solo queue, which is like when you're playing yourself. We would do that and stream that. But it was like, and it was good because if you wanted to see good League of Legends outside of a major tournament that was happening, because back then big tournaments happened every month rather than every week like they happen
Oh,
now.
wow.
So if you wanted to see good League of Legends, you had to go watch a pro player. So for our stream numbers, it was like insanely good. We would have, tens of thousands of viewers.
Wow. That is, what would you say, like, I don't know how much you really still follow competition or not. You haven't been doing it for a while now. Like, what do you think some of the biggest differences from like now? There's a lot of questions that came in from people asking about that with like, the journey is obviously, it's different from where you were to where it is now. Like,
Yep.
organizations will pay players, they'll have teams. What do you think are some of the biggest differences between?
The biggest change now is at first it was done as a marketing tool. So esports back, like it was essentially we have X marketing budget. We're going to carve out some of that. We're going to spend that on marketing. And it was done just to try and get players to come back and play or play more often or whatever. The evolution in thinking is like esports can be its own standalone business, right? This is the belief that some developers and people have, that it can be its own standalone business, and we're going to monetize it as a business, not treating it as a marketing expense. And that's led to different systems and different developers taking different approaches. So a company like Valve, who's behind Counter-Strike and Dota, are very hands-off. A company like Activision Blizzard, that's behind Overwatch and Call of Duty, are very hands-on. Like they really want to create like regional teams and have like these affinities where you've got people going to stadiums to watch. Then you've got Riot, who's like set up a whole global league infrastructure. I think there's something like 14 to 16 global leagues under League of Legends. And I think you've got like the Valve on one side, which is kind of hands off, and then you've got the Blizzard Activision on the other side, which is like very hands on.
Yeah.
And I think no one knows what the answer is. I'll be honest. Like everyone's just trying to figure out what model works. in esports. A big thing right now is there's a lot of capital flowing into the space. So a lot of traditional sports investors or even VCs are starting to throw money in esports, thinking, hey, is this like basketball in the 80s where I can put in 10 or 50 million and get a billion valuation, 20 or 30 years later? And they're taking this approach. And the problem that's okay, but in the process of doing that, it's creating a pretty unsustainable ecosystem. You've got players that are being paid a lot. You've got infrastructure costs that are a lot. And the brand dollars and the monetization hasn't caught up with the investment yet. And it's a chicken and the egg thing. Like you got to put money in to create money type thing. But that's the tension that the ecosystem is facing right now is how do we monetize and build an actual business versus this is a marketing tool.
Sure.
Because if you're a game developer like, EA, and you run a big Battlefield tournament, you could say that's a marketing expense, and then most people will buy Battlefield, the game, and that's how you monetize off the back end rather than people buying into the business unit of Battlefield Esports.
Yeah, it's been really interesting to see too, even like in the space of like Fortnite, right? Those guys just made so much money. It's similar to kind of what Riot's doing. They're just infusing all of their money into it. Literally, I think this year they have $100 million prize pool. They have a World Cup coming up for that. But I think a lot too, was it super common for everybody to be streaming? Because now it seems like I don't know, I would assume at least most of the pro players are streaming as well with their content. There's a huge side of that too.
It's interesting on that side is pros. So in the more competitive ecosystems, like Overwatch, or not, I would say more competitive, but in the ecosystems that have got a lot of infrastructure around them, like League of Legends and Overwatch,
yeah,
the pros actually have less time to stream. And they've got big salaries, but they've less time to stream.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so competitive now because there's so much money on the line that they need to focus on practicing, not streaming. Yeah. So they're actually in those ecosystems streaming less, but you've got the definition of esports is essentially evolving. Before it was like the best of the best, the top 1%. Now it's like, how can you just create competition online?
Mm-hmm.
So that's when you see things like Fortnite's Friday tournaments and things like that. That is not the best of the best, but it is competitive online gameplay. And what it's doing is it's changing the definition of esports. And when you do that, people don't necessarily know what a pro player is and a non-pro player is. And it's just a good thing for esports, like this kind of lowering the barrier to entry, essentially. And you've now got all these streamers that are decent at the game. They're not the very best, but they're decent at the game, are now creating these tournament ecosystems. And that's kind of labeled as esports. And me as a diehard esports fan and, pro player, I really believe this is great for the ecosystem. I think trying to say only the top 1% or 0.001% can compete is wrong. I think it needs to be a much more inclusive, wider ecosystem in labeling it competitive gameplay versus, this hardcore thing that's esports.
Yeah, it's been interesting to see too. And I definitely see that as well with like, even from my own thing, as well as what I've seen from others. It's like a lot of teams have even like pro players and creators on their, like on both sides of it. And then I've seen like in some of these tournaments that have been held, I've seen where it's like they just want other creators in the tournament with them. Like for myself, when I've played in them, it's like I know when there's a pro in that game because this dude is dominating everybody. It's like it could get bad pretty quick. And I've experienced that.
Yeah, the mixed match, you're like, damn, why'd this dude get invited? He's like way too good to be here. Like,
yeah,
what the hell?
Yeah. And it's like, well, let's have a tournament just for creators. Let's let the pros have their own, and it's like, but it's like an interesting mix that's kind of been happening.
Yeah.
Yeah. But so anyway, so you went from, was there like a definitive moment when you're like, all right, that's it for me. I'm done competing because you no longer compete. What was your transition from that? Like from going from
biggest thing for me is I had a great career. Like I really did. I traveled the world. We got third in the world championships, not first. It's always bitter as a competitor, but we got third in the championships. I met so many amazing people and had so many amazing experiences. And for me, throughout that time, I was always really interested in the business side of esports. And I was like negotiating not just my own contract, but like on behalf of my teammates, I was negotiating their contracts. I was like working with sponsors like Monster, etc. And I was always really involved there in the back end. And that led to me at the end of my career saying, you know what, I don't want to become necessarily a full-time streamer or like a personality afterwards. I really want to go behind the scenes and help build the industry from the back. And I went to a startup for a year, and that really accelerated a lot of the startup. You're doing everything, so I learned a lot there. And while I was at that startup, I had Facebook had reached out to me, and actually had asked me if I could come and help with their esports initiatives at the time. And I was quite reluctant, to be honest. Facebook's a great company. I felt super lucky to be asked that, but I had so much autonomy, for all my career. Like, I was now gonna have a boss. I was gonna have to move from Seattle, which I loved, down to San Francisco. Um, and there was all these kind of pros and cons that I was doing when thinking about it. And then I have amazing mentors throughout my life. I'm like super grateful. And for all the listeners, like, I really encourage you to get mentors in your life. Like, it's helped me out immensely. And speaking with them, they said Facebook's a great place. You should go there. And when I joined, I made it my mission to work with the team at Facebook to try and get them to care about the games space that I came from. I came from the hardcore side of games, and Facebook had this, business around the casual side of like Farmville and things like that. And I really, really wanted us to do more in the core side, because I thought that was like where the game space was going. And I just seen that we could do a lot in that.
Where was their like game? Because obviously, yeah, they were huge, and Farmville was like one of the biggest games in the entire world, which is crazy to think about. But it was like, where was their gaming mindset when you joined them? Because clearly they were interested in esports, wanting to bring you on. Like,
I think they seen it happening. They were like, we need someone who gets it to help us understand it at that point. And there was a few folks on the team, but really the team was very small. There wasn't a lot of investment in games at that point in time. And internally, there wasn't a lot of understanding. And it wasn't like they didn't want to do things. They just didn't understand. They didn't have people inside that understand and were from it. So when I joined, I really tried to educate a lot. Like, I spent a lot of my time just educating other people, and very smart people that are doing amazing things. They just didn't know the space. So I spent a lot of time doing that. And then, framing up an approach. I really believed that we could build a live streaming platform. Facebook Live was just taking off at that point in time. I was like, we can really build a meaningful live streaming platform for creators here, and honestly help more people like create a living doing what they love, like what I was able to do. And that proved to be harder than I thought. I was very naive, like, hey, let's go build this live platform. Essentially, let's go build a version of Twitch on Facebook. That was very, very, very challenging. And that's when I bumped into you, in those early days. I met you. I went to the EA Game Changer event, and I was telling you about this cool, new, awesome, amazing, very janky thing that, barely worked at that point. And I was trying to say, hey, can you come try this out? And
yeah, it was a big presentation. I remember that you and one other guy had given, and it was to a room of creators that all wanted to. We're all doing YouTube videos or Twitch streaming and things like that. And it was actually a few months before that. I think it was about in 2015. So maybe even a half a year before, I had started posting content on Facebook. And I actually had some videos go insanely viral on there. And one of the things that actually made me want to do it was I had Battlefield shared one of my videos out, and that went incredibly viral because it was my YOLO where I go in and full commanding officer on people and lead some squads. And it was just like, to me, it was just like, I'd seen people going on like Ellen and all these other mainstream TV shows just from their Facebook videos going viral. And I was like, I need to be posting here too. So I was posting my content, I was curating it. And so when I was there, I was really already receptive to like wait, Facebook's actually trying to get in on
So things were in my favor at this point. It
yeah,
was
like I'm
we could,
gaming,
yeah.
I'm posting content here. Like there's barely anybody in this space posting content. Like literally everybody, a lot of people in that room were like, "Well, I'm posting my videos on YouTube and I make money from that. I could post my videos on Facebook and make no money from that. Which should I do?" I'm not going to do that. You don't have monetization on your platform yet?
Biggest
Yeah, I'm not
question
going to
that
do
came
that.
up when I did that was like, "Where's the monetization?" I was like,
Yeah.
"We don't have it yet,
Yeah.
but I promise, like, it's gonna come. We're gonna work on it." And it was a room. I think of it that it was like 300 people
Yeah.
or 200 people in that room, and like a couple of people came up, but um, and that first chat we had, I was like, "Wow, um, you've got like a spark. You've got like an energy here."
I went up for these guys who thought, like I literally went up to him. I was like, I was talking to the guy next to me. I was like, I'm going up. I'm going to talk to him after this. Literally, I've been posting video. This is good. I'm like, yeah, okay. And then I went up and I talked to him. I was like, dude, I've been posting videos there. I've seen him been blowing up. I see all these other videos. I want to figure out how I can blow my stuff up. I saw the vision there, and I was just like, let's do this. Let's try and figure this out. So, anyways, that was when I was streaming on Twitch at the time, I believe. I was doing some streams on YouTube, but I think I did have a Twitch partnership that it was a long
Yep.
time ago.
Yeah.
But I was trying some stuff here and there, and then eventually I tried multi-streaming to them and stuff. And
that began like, I mean, we essentially in those early days together built the platform. Like we made enough case studies to get enough people to believe in what Facebook gaming could become. And it's just such an incredible journey. And it's like definitely one of the highlights of my career is what we were able to accomplish. I mean, Facebook is a very big company and they're doing a lot of awesome, amazing things. And the fact that we were able to prove enough value inch by inch, essentially over time, and get them to believe in what we're doing. And now you've got, hundreds, if not thousands of creators starting to make a living. And it's still, it's definitely not where Twitch is today or where YouTube is today, but it's came such a long way. And that's just the beginning, right? Like it really is. And when I think about the impact that I've had on the industry, and I look at that and I go, I was really skeptical about joining this Facebook thing, but now when I look back, I go, wow, like I left a dent on the games industry by choosing to do that. Like there's now another viable live streaming platform in the industry. And that wouldn't have happened otherwise. Or it might have happened, but like maybe not as quick or whatever.
sure.
And that's extremely rewarding and like something I'm really proud of.
Yeah, man. I mean, it's pretty crazy because like those years ago to see people being like, "Oh, what's this?" to now like the next year being like, "Wait, you have how many followers on Facebook after doing that for a year?" Okay. And then 2 years later being like, "Oh, all these other people have started to do this now. Oh, that's interesting." So now 3 years where now they've got like so many more things going on. It's like it's pretty crazy. And even besides that, other platforms like Mixer's been evolving. It's been crazy to see how the whole industry, like what you're saying, like has started, with esports, and the expansion of this over these years has just been so crazy to see. And
Yeah,
gaming
like
evolving in general.
live streaming is growing at 40% year on year. And gaming as an industry is just incredibly exciting. Like, and I'm so happy. Like, there's like you've got Facebook in the space, you've got YouTube in the space, you've got Mixer, Caffeine, Twitch, like all these different live streaming platforms that are making each other better, and that ultimately is great for the streamer, the creator, and the viewer. So so stoked with what we built, and it's still being built.
Yeah.
It's still got a long way to go, but it's super exciting.
So what's your like goals for what's next? Like where are you at with that?
So I actually left Facebook back in October last year to help my wife and her company. She was doing really well, and I was helping her hire a few folks. We moved down from San Francisco to LA, and we hired a few folks for her team and built an office and things like that. And I was thinking about what I want to do next, and I've I really believe that there's a huge amount of value that we can bring to the community. And this is something that I been chatting with David about for a long time. And David's like, it's hard to understand, but like David is so good at helping other folks
And
and
he's
other
he's
streamers.
referring to me if you don't know me as
Oh yeah,
David.
Snoopy. I gotta forget Snoopy StoneMountain
Yeah,
64.
yeah,
We
yeah.
had
I
that
just I
conversation
know
right at the
people don't
start.
know me as David, so you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, Stone, I should say. And yeah, the biggest thing is like I've realized that I've been so fortunate to turn my passion into career. A small town kid from Scotland. I've since been able to travel the world, and I think that we can help do that for thousands of other people. And I been hard at work behind the scenes, and we're sharing a little more to tomorrow about it for those streamers that will be joining us. But I've been working with David to build a company called Pipeline, and that's helping streamers turn their passion into a career. And I am so proud of what we built over the last 4 or 5 months. It's been an incredible journey. When you're first starting out, you've got this idea and like actually turning it into something that can help thousands of people. It's been a wild ride, but I'm so stoked to start this next chapter, which is going to be in the next 3 to 5 years of my life, which is helping people turn their passion into a career through streaming.
Yeah, and we'll talk more about that tomorrow too. And if you guys are listening to this as well, some point in the future, you can read more about it, pipeline.gg. But yeah, that's super cool, man. I'm definitely excited about it. We'll talk more about that too. But we're running out of time. I did want to hit some of the questions because we got a ton of awesome questions from the community. So let's get through. Let's do some of those. We kind of addressed some of them. I was curious. I guess you kind of touched on some of it, but I'll just throw it out there. DJS asks, were you playing? He actually was playing Dota really competitively. He was wondering, were you playing any LAN tournaments with friends, team? You kind of went through how you joined that, but like when you're early on, how were you finding LANs or like competitions to play in?
So I was in Scotland, which was in the UK. I know it can be confusing. So I was in the UK, and I was probably like 18 or something. And what I did do is I would go down to it was called Insomnia Gaming Festival, which is the largest LAN festival in England. And I got on a train. It was like a 6-hour train ride, and I like typical. Have you ever been on LAN? Like I was carrying my CRT monitor, my keyboard, my tower, like carrying a 6-hour train ride with a CRT monitor and my tower. So like went down there and I basically played video games for 4 days, didn't shower for 4 days, sat on a crate, like I didn't even have a chair, I just sat on like a pallet box. And I did things like that. So I definitely went to a few LAN centers. That helped me a lot. It's just the social aspect was really good. And also just the experience was really good. And I didn't win any of the I series, but we definitely played like pretty well, and that was like good early experience. But a lot of mine came from online, than actually offline.
Cody E asked, and actually, there's something recently that happened with this. I don't know if you saw it, but he asked, "Have you looked into D?" And it's kind of a question for both of us. Have you looked into D Live for streaming and thoughts? I don't know if you saw, but PewDiePie actually signed an exclusive deal with D Live to be streaming on there.
Yeah, I did. I saw that. So like, there's a lot of companies getting into the live streaming space. I do think D Live is one of the exciting ones. I think that their approach to the decentralization and using on like a blockchain model is really interesting. There's a big question mark around the currency and like adaptation of like blockchain and people's trust for it. Like, can it hit that scale? Getting someone like PewDiePie to believe in it and come and do an activation with them is awesome. My thoughts on it are like, how can they educate people on blockchain? Because I just feel like there's a knowledge gap
Yeah.
between the average gamer or viewer and that tech. So they
Yeah.
might be more comfortable with platforms like Twitch, Facebook, YouTube.
I feel like there's still a learning curve to that, quite a learning curve. Like I even went there and I saw he's basically just like running a stream currently. That's just he's waiting for his first stream, but he's streaming before that. That's got a few thousand people watching. So it's most of his audience kind of going to it, finding other people right now. So there's been a ton of discovery through that, but a lot of like there's like lemons and there's some things on the side I'm not super certain of. I'm sure they'll figure it out over time, but to me it's kind of just like it's interesting to see that like of any move to make. PewDiePie currently has like 190 million or 100 million. Yeah. He's the number one on YouTube, which is an insanely massive platform. So it's like, if anything, that is a major disruption. I'm just so excited to see what happens with it, with like people streaming on it, with the audience, how they adapt to it. Like, is it just going to be his audience on there, or is it going to spread from there? Like,
I think it's super cool. You got to make it sticky. It's like that, you know, you get a tentpole thing. Like how many of those people that came to see PewDiePie, because I don't know how long PewDiePie is going to be live for on the platform.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, or how long his thing is.
How long is his audience going to stick around, and then how much of that audience goes to other, you know, streamers, and that's like a question.
He's doing something kind of cool though. He's giving $50,000 to others. Like his first stream, he's going to be watching other streams and donating money to people.
That's his stream thing, by the way. Like
I know, right? Like
it's actually, you see like Mr. Beast and like those guys and the whole like Cash App thing. Like it's such a smart. I don't know what the legality of all that stuff is, but like it's such a smart engagement strategy.
It's pretty interesting. Fisher B asked, in terms of creating a team, how do you recruit? Whether that's for, you know, your team professionally or whatever future things.
So creating a team, like it's surprisingly still got a lot of friction. I think the best attempts at trying to resolve that were platforms like in League of Legends, they create a thing called Clash where you could like recruit people in to play, and then it would like create your mini professional team essentially. I think the best way to create a team is still probably when you're competing at a rank. So like, for example, if you are, let's say, Diamond in League of Legends, and you're constantly competing at that Diamond level, you'll start to see people that you play with more frequently. And then you say, hey, I would love, like, what'd you think about forming a team? And I think that's like the most organic way to start a kind of grassroots team. It was for when I first started, like I got to the top of the European ladder and played with the same people over and over. And then that's how we made ours. So you can try that. The other thing that you can do in making a team is, if you're thinking like professional level, that one's a lot harder. That is the infrastructure required to do that. You need to have a lot of capital. But there is an opportunity in that field that doesn't require money, and it's ability to scout talent. So if you can get really good at spotting talent early, that is a very valuable skill, and a lot of people, it's a very high in demand skill. There's people out there right now that don't actually run big, massive pro teams, but run businesses around finding talent. So that's like a good opportunity if you're trying to get started with a grassroots team or a pro team.
Yeah. And I think too, like a lot of it, and he was asking too, like, do you bring on friends, or I think you make a lot of connections as you go through, even just like building teams for anything else. I think you make a lot of connections over time, and you'll know what those connections' strengths and weaknesses are. Yep. And you can kind of work with the people that have the right strengths for what you're looking for. Yeah. Richie A, he's actually Scottish as well. He asks what your favorite. He asks what your favorite slang is, like your slang term from. He said you guys have a lot of different slang things you say.
Oh, we do. But you know the sad thing is, I feel Richie's gonna like laugh at me like because I sound so American. But there's Denny Ken. Do you know what that means, David?
No, I don't know. I don't know what you just said.
I don't know.
Okay, yeah, I did know. I was just saying I don't know because I knew what it meant. Let's go with that.
But yeah, there's so much slang, and it's sad because I've started to forget it. Like I know what the American word is now. I was so ashamed of it within me.
Yeah, I actually have some Scottish YouTube friends that I've got to meet in person and talk to, and even in person talking to them, that they're just like, this accent so strong. I'm like, I don't know what he just said. I'm sorry. I don't know.
Mine used to be that way. It's just over the
Yeah.
years. It's
How long have you been in the States?
in
Or
the
I
States,
guess.
I think, like, out of Scotland. I've been out of Scotland for 8 years. And there's this thing, apparently, if you move, and I don't know how true it is, but if you move to a new place before you're 25, you've got a good chance of losing your accent.
Mm.
I don't know how true that is. It's just someone told me that once, and I've kind of stuck with it. But
Yeah, sure. Caleb G asked, it was a question for both of us. Will I ever play League of Legends, Dota, and will you ever play any like battle royale type games? I have played League before, but I feel like it's way too. I feel like those audiences are quite different. It's like what you were talking about earlier. Like you'd be interested to know how much crossover there was between audiences. It's like, yeah, I don't know how much crossover there is, but and even like, because even watching Dota games or Dota or League or something, I'm just like, I don't know what's happening. It's too much happening, you know? Like I can't register it.
It's in like an FPS game. You can at least look at it and go, "Oh, guy got shot, guy died. Okay, that makes sense."
Sure, yeah, sure.
And like,
but some of the abilities, it's like,
all those colors
was
happened, and who won?
Yeah,
like, it definitely it can be harder to understand for sure.
I'm not throwing it. I'm not saying I won't ever play any game like that because, yeah, I mean, I didn't know what the hell I was going to be doing 2 years ago. If you told me I was doing this right now, I would be shocked, you know? So it's like, I don't know what's going to happen in the future, but, I mean, have you played any battle royales or anything?
I have, but I was going to say, am I going to see StoneMountain 64 competing on stages for League of Legends? Is that going to happen? Is that the next chapter?
No way I can catch up on that, dude.
I played BR. I really liked Apex. For me, because I don't have as much time to play games now, what I do is I tend to fall back to the game that I have the muscle memory to play. So like Apex requires a lot of work. Like Fortnite, like building mechanics, like takes time to learn. So for me, it's just easier to fall back to like a Counter-Strike, which is like point and shoot, or League of Legends, which I have so much muscle memory, like I can almost play the game blind. So that is, I play more League nowadays, but I'd be happy to try BR. PUBG is a great game.
That actually just kind of leads to the next question. Tyler R. asked, have you ever played Smite? What do you think of it? Because that's kind of a game that's, I don't know if you've ever played it or seen it, but it's basically like League of Legends.
I've seen it, but I never played it.
Yeah. Yeah, I actually have some buds that do play it, but I haven't really gotten into that one either. That's kind of like a crossover between them almost, because it's like a third person. You control the character from the perspective, but it's still technically the same format as like a League.
Yeah, the one thing I got to index on is like, okay, there might be this one thing that solves my need and I can go play that, but like none of my buddies are going to play it. So how am I going to go? I want to play with my buddies. Like as I get older, that's the one thing I keep coming back to is like, I want to play with my buddies, because we always create, it's like life gets, you get kids, you get married, you get all this stuff, you get a house, you start playing with your buddies less. And that's the thing that I want to make sure I do. So wherever I'm going to try and find games that my buddies enjoy as well. Just so that we keep playing games, basically.
Awesome. Cool, man. Well, that was what we had for it. Any final thoughts? Anything to share? Whatever.
It's just a pleasure to be here. Like, thanks so much for having me on. So good. I mean, it's crazy to think behind the scenes. I've been working with David for years, and it's so cool just to kind of be here and chatting with you all. So yeah, thanks for the time. Working on some really cool stuff. Stay tuned.
And what's your Twitter or whatever?
Yeah, Twitter's my go-to. So if you go to at Snoopeh, at SNOOPEH.
Perfect. Cool. Yeah, if you guys want to tweet them, connect with them, whatever, go for it. We'll have more coming for you as well. Thank you guys so much for listening, hanging out for the podcast today. If you do want to go give it a review over on iTunes, wherever it's at, it's across all the major platforms, Spotify, all that good stuff. Hugely appreciate you tuning in. Of course, thanks for joining in, Steven. Appreciate it.
No worries. Thanks.
Ton of fun. Later, guys.